Good morning, friends and fellow truth seekers. This is my first episode of Tarot Talks, and I wanted to give a little lesson about the court cards today, and not specifically all the court cards. We want to start small. So the first card that I pulled was the Queen of Swords. So when you're first learning tarot, I feel like the court cards were very intimidating because, number one, they can personify somebody. This could be an actual person we're talking about, or it could mean something else. So the first thing I want to talk about is what astrological associations does this card have. So we're talking about the suit of air. Now the suit of air is the suit of the mind. Okay, so we have the air signs Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Now when you're talking about basic knowledge and you want to keep it basic, you may say this person, if it's personifying something, is a Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius, and you can leave it at that. But you can go deeper. A lot of these cards, they have so much information packed into them that once you start adding astrology to the actual cards, you're going to get so much information, so much more information, and then the reading becomes a little less intimidating because you have so much information. And you also take that it's not just about the one card. You take that information and then you relate it to the information that you're getting in the other cards as well. So that's what makes it a lot easier. Now also, there's something called a decan in astrology, or decan, you know, it just depends on how you pronounce it. But what a decan is, it's a certain sliver of time between signs. Okay, so we're talking about the third decan of Virgo with this card, and the first and second decans of Libra. So what that means is we're talking about the fall. Okay, so we're talking about Libra, which is October, and we're also talking about Virgo. Okay, so this is September, October. So if you want to get into telling time and when things are going to happen, the decans are actually really helpful with that. I never really believed in a lot of the methods that I have read previously about telling time with tarot, except for when you add astrology, the decans actually give you seasons and times of the month that these cards are signifying. And it's not only the court cards that, you know, relate to the decans. There's a lot of the major arcana, the minor arcana cards, sorry, that relate to the decans as well. So the further you get into your studies, the more information that you're going to get out of these cards, which is super, super cool. So I drew up a very crude drawing. So just to kind of describe what I'm talking about here. So here is the time frame that we're talking about. And what's kind of confusing about astrology, and you get used to it after a while, is that the wheel goes counterclockwise. It doesn't go clockwise. So we're talking about Virgo to Libra, and we're talking about the end months of Virgo to Libra. So if you look at the notches, look in the clear here because it's you can see it better. They're actually degrees. When you look at a birth chart, you're going to say, oh, my sun is 10 degrees, you know, Leo. That means that 10 degrees is this area right here. It's the first area into that sign. And then the area between would be the next sign of that suit. So if we're talking about the third decan of Virgo here, this is Earth. This is an Earth sign, Virgo. So we have a mixture of Earth and air. So the third decan of Virgo actually is Taurus, and Taurus is ruled by Venus. So there is like you know, of air Venus in this person. And then we have the first, I have the arrows pointing to the places in time that I'm talking about here. So we have the first and second decans of Libra. So the first 10 degrees of a sign is actually that sign. And the next 10 to 20 would be the next, so if we're talking about Libra, it would be the next air sign, which would be Aquarius. So we're talking about the wheel of the year here. So it's the next air sign that comes after Libra. Okay, so we're talking about Aquarius and Libra here. And we're talking about planetary associations, which would be Venus, which is the ruler of Virgo, and then Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius. So and then what you could do is you can look up, you know, what these planets do when they're mixed together, and you can get this information. So if you're reading somebody, you can, you know, look into the astrology and get so much more in-depth information about these cards. And, you know, anything with tarot, I know this may seem very intimidating because it's so much information, and some people are, you know, they avoid astrology like the plague when they're doing tarot, because when you take up tarot, there's 78 cards that you have to get to learn, and you also have to get to learn all of their reversals. So you have all of that information, and then if you think about all of the information you have to get and retain from the astrological standpoint, it can be very intimidating. But if you start small, you can get all of the information in sections. So say if you say, I'm just going to learn the major arcana and I'm going to learn their planetary associations. That's 21 cards. And then the planets actually are there. You know, we have some planets that rule multiple signs. So it's, you know, it's really not that hard if you break it down in sections. And if you dedicate your time to it, it becomes a lot easier. And the more you get into astrology, the more the terminology you get to know, and it becomes a lot easier to, you know, navigate through the tarot with astrology. But I actually avoided astrology like the plague because, like I said, it's intimidating. But once I actually mastered the tarot, I knew I couldn't get any further in my studies unless I studied astrology as well. And when I tell you it was the best thing I ever did for myself when it comes to readings, I'm really telling the truth. And I would say go for it, jump into it. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment and I will be happy to help you. So I hope you enjoyed this first lesson, and I look forward to doing a lot more for you guys. Have a great morning.